we're going to return to the BSC Library homepage, and we're going to select database research. Under databases, we're going to go to databases by subject. We're going to select social sciences, and we're going to scroll down until we see sociology. My favorite is the Sociological Abstracts website, but if you're researching something related to crime and punishment, you might want Criminal Justice Reference Service abstracts. And if you're researching something related to social services like social work, public health, etc., you might want to select social services abstracts. It's not important to me where you get your sources from, but we're going to use sociological abstracts as an example. So when I click this and it loads slowly, we're going to fill in this form. This is a search form, and we're going to use it to create search terms. We're going to say, I want to know about women and sports, and then I'm going to generate a new row, and I'm going to add pay. Now, I want women and sports and pay to be what the article is actually about. The way this form looks now, those terms could occur anywhere in the article and it would still give me that result. That's not very useful. What I would like, I could put it in the document title, but that might give me too few results if women, sports, and pay all have to be in the title. Instead, I'm going to select abstract. That means it will be in the short summary of what the article is actually about, but it won't necessarily have to be in the document title. And again, I'm going to select to limit my results to peer-reviewed journal articles. And now I'm going to click search and see what happens. I've only gotten 12 results. That's not very many. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and modify my search. And I'm going to say, instead of just sports, maybe I want sports or athletics. And maybe instead of just women, I want to say women or women or gender or sex. Now what this will do is when I say or, it means it will return results with any of these terms. If I said and, it would have to contain both of these terms. So I'm going to search again. And this time I get 17 results, which is somewhat better. But I think I can do even better. Instead of in the abstract, maybe I just want pay to be in anywhere in the document. Let's see what happens now and what kind of results I get. Here I have 103, but they still look good. Advantage men, the sex pay gap in professional tennis. The sport nexus and gender injustice. And look, we see here that pay inequality is part of the issues discussed in the article. Racial and gender differences in sources of acute stress and coping style among competitive athletes, that's not necessarily helpful. So some of these look a lot more helpful than others. Gender, social class, and the sporting capital, economic capital nexus. Girls are equal to education, body politics, and the making of teenage feminism. So some of these may be really interesting to you and others may not. Let's pick one that looks really obviously related to your topic, which is, of course, gender and sports and pay. And let's see what this article looks like. We can see that it was written in 2013 and it's been cited in 6 other articles. So if you want to find some related articles, you can click on the Cited By button and find other articles that have used this article as a resource. These may be interesting to you too. For example, examining gender bias in online coverage of professional tennis, and gender determining institutions and the science of sex testing. Those might be interesting to you, or they might not. You can also look at this article's references. So these are articles that the article you're looking at has used as sources. And you can see here, gender and racial inequality at work, the sources and consequences of job segregation, has been cited by 373 other sources, and it was written in 1993. This is what you would call a classic piece then. It's older, but it's been cited many times. So now that you see how to do database research, how to do library research, we're going to look at how to read a sociological article. So you found some articles, and now you want to know how to be able to use them. So going back to our target article, Advantage Men, the Sex Pay Gap in Professional Tennis. Let's see if we can find the full text of this article. We're going to use Articles at BSC to look for this article. And we see that we have access to it through Sage. Now look, here's the article. So the first piece of the article you want to read is the abstract. The abstract here is a short, usually 150-word summary of the entire article. It tells you what the article is going to do, but then it also tells you what the article found. Our case study uses publicly accessible data for professional tennis players ranked in the top 100 at the end of the 2009 season to determine to what extent a pay gap exists between men and women. We find that median earnings, both in 2009 and over a player's career, are substantially higher for men than women in the sample. Net of various productivity measures, the average female player earned less than her male counterpart for every singles tournament won in 2009. So this article doesn't just tell you this abstract doesn't just tell you what the article's about, it also tells you what their findings were. So unlike creative writing, where the author tries not to bury the lead, authors are very upfront about their findings in the abstract of the article. Now, what you want to do in reading this article is pay attention to the sections. So the first section is generally not labeled, but it's going to be an introduction. It's going to set up the background of the subject. Now, maybe you're already very knowledgeable on this topic. Maybe you've read a lot about gender and pay in sport before because this is an interest of yours. If so, it's a good idea to skim the introduction, but maybe you don't have to read it word for word. Data and method. This section tells you what the authors did. And it usually includes tables, which illustrate what they did. Next, we have the results section. The results section is very dry, and it literally just tells you, based on the analyses that we described in the methods section, here's what we actually found. So it will talk you through how to read the tables, and it will talk you through whether each table or each part of each table confirms or doesn't confirm a hypothesis. The next important section, and maybe the most important section in the article other than the abstract, is the discussion. So the discussion generally explains what the results mean in terms of the topic overall. So instead of just presenting, here's what we did and here's what we found, it tells you, why is this important? What does this teach us about our question? So the discussion is also going to tell you what some potential explanations are for the findings. Here we see some explanations, but it's also going to do this. It's going to say what future research should do. It's going to say, this is what we didn't find or didn't learn about in this article, and here are some questions that still need to be answered. So note that this is one of the things I want you to talk about in your drafts, is what do sociologists still need to know about your topic? Here's where you can find an answer to that question. You can also pay attention to funding. Here they say that they received no funding from a specific granting agency, funding agency in the public, commercial, or nonprofit sectors. But sometimes the authors will disclose a funding source that might make you skeptical of what they say they found. So that's basically how you read a research article. Of course, you should email me if there are any questions about this. The next thing I want to talk to you about after how to read an article is how to identify theories.